I've committed to starting the Startup Education Foundation, whose first project will be a $100 million challenge grant.
$100 million?
$100 million.
The city of Newark, New Jersey is a tragic microcosm of everything that's wrong with education in America. When our next guest began her reporting in 2010 on what would eventually be a book, fewer than 40% of the students in the 3rd through 8th grades in Newark were reading or doing math at that specific level. And nearly half of the students in the system dropped out before graduating. Along comes Mark Zuckerberg, founder of Facebook, toting $100 million to make things better. And what happened from there is a lesson in good ideas and bad execution. Our guest is a former Washington Post reporter and author of The Prize, Who's in Charge of America's Schools? Welcome Dale Russakoff to the Hard Line. Dale, I want to thank you for joining us. And the only thing that I can imagine is when you embedded yourself in New Jersey and as you started to see things happen, if it were me, I would have to ask myself, am I seeing massive corruption, stupidity, or incompetence? Or all three? What was it?
Well, I didn't see corruption, but I did see a lot of misreading of how do you go about changing a school district and how do you relate to people in a community that is where schools are failing and where there is, on the ground, a consensus that the schools need to change. But the problem was that the reform effort was done totally from the top down without any input from the people on the ground who knew the most about what was going on with the children and the needs that existed in the public schools.
When we talk about intent, Zuckerberg had a great idea. Here's $100 million. Here's 5 years to make this a national model. But then you have Governor Chris Christie at the time. He wanted to break the unions, and there's a lot of people who still to this day think that it was a good idea. They brought in a superintendent that really didn't seem to brush well with the unions themselves. I mean, it just seems like every piece that was put together here, Dale, simply wasn't thought out before they did it.
Well, I think that was part of the problem. I think that Cory Booker, when he made the pitch to Mark Zuckerberg he was the mayor at the time in Newark, and he pitched to him that if he brought $100 million to Newark, that together they could completely transform education in one city, and then they could use it as a model to transform education in cities across the country. And it sounded, great, but they didn't have a plan, and they didn't have a detailed understanding of what it was going to take to change the teacher's contract, to change seniority protections, which are a big part of why education costs so much in Newark and why it's so hard to make changes. That they didn't even know, Mark Zuckerberg didn't know at the time that that seniority protections are embedded in state law. So he wanted to create a new teacher's contract, but a teacher's contract can't touch seniority. That has to be done through the legislature.
Doesn't that then tell us that there's a whole lot more here? We always look and we see that the kids are failing. But a lot of times it's the teachers who fail. It's the unions who fail. It's the leadership who fails. To me, there just seems to be a tremendous amount of naivete in here, Dale, about the fact that we can just take money, throw it at it, and boom, the problem's solved.
Well, I think there are ways to spend money that could have a tremendous impact on education and children's success in school, but that would involve getting money to the classroom and school level, because children in Newark and in cities like it have tremendous social and emotional needs. They witness violence every day, they experience extreme poverty, and they need more teachers in the classroom, they need more social workers, they need the kind of supports that will help them navigate those social and emotional issues so that when they get in front of an excellent teacher, they can learn well.
Aren't we talking about maybe at the beginning of the day, the working conditions for teachers have to be improved? Because I'll be very honest, I know some very good teachers out there who are simply put upon by the system and how they feel like they're being done. We're talking about bad teachers in many ways, but there's a lot of good teachers out there. Why is this money not put towards helping them and giving them the better conditions, the better books, whatever else they need to be able to teach these kids?
They need a lot more support than they're getting. And you can go into any school that's defined as a failing school, and you can find excellent teachers in it. There are teachers who come every day under these conditions doing phenomenal work, and they deserve better conditions. It's absolutely true.
Are we looking, though, at a time when we've got people who may just not want to be teachers anymore? They don't want to put that dedication towards it because they see this report. It was a fascinating report that you put together, all these different ideas, and the fact that $100 million doesn't do it, it would seem to me we're creating a generation of teachers that just don't want to be there.
I think that there are some, that's true of some teachers, but I don't think that's true of the majority of teachers. And I think it gets back to what you said, the working conditions for teachers are so inadequate and they're negative, and they need to have a lot more support from their principals and from the school system they work in.
So about the minute or so that I have left here in the book, when you had it all together, what did you come away with on how we can solve this? Working conditions aside, how we can then make the money work in school systems?
Well, I might sound like a broken record, but I feel like the money really needs to get to the schools instead of being in the central offices of the school districts. Because if you get money to the schools and principals have the training they need to know how to deploy that money to support children so that they can come to the classroom and learn from the teachers in front of them, I think that would make a huge difference.
Are unions part of the problem, Dale?
I think everyone's part of the problem. I think unions have their role to play, but I don't think that unions are the boogeyman. I think that the whole system really needs an overhaul.
When people read this book, do you think that educators will look at it and they'll say, gee, what a good idea? Or will they say, gosh, I wish somebody hadn't uncovered the problems?
No, I think that they'll say that it's, changing education is really hard and it's very slow work. And if you look at the way Mark Zuckerberg is approaching it in the philanthropy he's doing now in California, you can see that he thinks that too. He's learned, and I think he's changed his approach.
Learn about what's happening in the school systems, because we've got to save these kids. The book, once again, is called The Prize: Who's in Charge of America's Schools? Learn more about what your kids are going through as well. Dale Russakoff, brilliant job. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope we talk again. Another reason why we should all love tigers and how they can make America smarter. Next, I'm telling it like it is.